Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Staff Picks. This month, we're featuring Black History Month picks. My name is Devon. I work at the Worcester Public Library, and I'm here with my co-host and co-worker, Joy. Hi, Joy.
Hi, how are you today?
Okay, I'm surviving the ice and snow. What about you?
Well, it is Massachusetts in February, so I don't know what we could expect.
Good point. So almost everything Joy and I are talking about today, you can get online for free with the Overdrive or Libby app. You can also use Overdrive on your desktop or browser with your laptop. And don't forget, we're doing physical pickup of items now as well. So if you want the print copy or the book on CD or whatever, you can do that too. If you're not sure how to do any of that, just call the library and we'll help you out. So now I'm going to switch screens so you can see the books we have lined up for you this week. As usual, I'll be doing the fiction and Joy will do the nonfiction. We are talking about fiction, even though it's Black History Month features. I don't know if you've heard, but a lot of people who are talking about the anti-racism movement happening say that the nonfiction books are great, but people should also read fiction by African Americans to learn more about the experience and sort of vary what they're learning. So we'll be talking about all of these books are published in 2020 and are either notable or best of. So everything here is going to be great. For my first choice, I have Everywhere You Don't Belong by Gabriel Bump. This book came out in February of 2020. It was a New York Times Notable Book of the Year, and it was a Chicago Public Library choice for Best of the Best Books. It's described as fierce, original, witty, and darkly comic. Claude isn't dangerous or brilliant. He's an average kid coping with abandonment, violence, riots, failed love, and societal pressures as he navigates his youth. He just wants a place where he can fit. As a young Black man born on the south side of Chicago, he's raised by his foul-mouthed civil rights era grandmother, who wants him to be an actor for change. Yet when riots consume his neighborhood after the police killing of a young boy, Claude hesitates, unwilling to let race define his life. He decides to leave Chicago for someplace else, to go to college, find a new identity, and leave the pressure cooker of his hometown. But he discovers he cannot escape his past, and there's no safe haven for a young Black man at this time in America. This book got a starred review from Library Journal and was obviously very well reviewed by author Tommy Orange. It's a book that achieves the perfect balance between heaviness and levity. Kirkus Reviews called it a sharply funny debut novel told in short vignettes rather than a traditional narrative. Bump creates striking images and conversations that vibrate with the life of Chicago's South Side. So I like this book for a few different reasons. I like how it gives you a strong sense of place if you're a fan of Chicago, like my co-host is.
Go Cubs!
I also like that it has a little bit of an unexpected plot line there where Claude doesn't want to get involved with the riots and he doesn't want to let race define himself. But unfortunately, he finds that isn't possible right now. So this book sounds like it's going to be great. If you want to get your name on the wait list, we have it in a couple formats. And here's one from Joy.
Well, my first choice for this month is The Dead Are Arising, The Life of Malcolm X by Les Payne and Tamara Payne. The Dead Are Arising is, in the words of PW, a truly monumental work. It won a National Book Award and received accolades from innumerable publications. It does not supplant the autobiography, but does augment, enhance, and in some cases correct the historic record. The book is based on 30 years of research and is replete with interviews with everyone from Malcolm's family members to the law enforcement officials who dogged his footsteps. Sadly, Payne died before he could complete his work. Happily, his daughter Tamara could and did. Shortly before he was born in 1925, Malcolm Little's mother was visited by the Ku Klux Klan in Omaha, where the family lived. They were looking for his father, a local activist. His mother convinced them to go away, and for the next few years, the home where young Malcolm Little grew remained undisturbed. Then, when Malcolm was 6, his hardworking father died, and the family endured great poverty and eventually dispersal. Malcolm ended up in foster care in a largely white community where he did so well in school and was so well liked, he became president of his class. But after he moved to Boston as a teenager, he succumbed to the lure of street life, lingering around the local clubs where he met many jazz greats, including singer Billie Holiday, as well as comedian Red Fox, and engaged in a series of petty crimes that eventually landed him in jail. When the door of a Massachusetts prison closed behind him, he was 19 years old and had already lived what most would consider an eventful life. For many young men, imprisonment would have been the end. For Malcolm Little, it was only the beginning. First, he began to read voraciously. Secondly, he found Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam and became Malcolm X. Now, keep in mind that Elijah Muhammad's brand of Islam bears little resemblance to that practiced in the rest of the world. The NOI preached that whites were irredeemably evil and that the only remedy was to separate from white society entirely. It was this dogma, enthusiastically embraced by the brilliant young NOI spokesman, Malcolm X, that led him to publicly oppose Martin Luther King's call for racial justice and nonviolent resistance. And the media ate it up. A journey to Mecca, however, disillusionment with Elijah Muhammad, and a shift to a more political and revolutionary perspective moved Malcolm to adopt a more generous and compassionate vision, as well as a more conventional form of Islam. According to President Barack Obama, Malcolm was a master of self-creation. He told the truth as he saw it, no matter how unpopular, but he was not afraid to grow, change, and admit his mistakes. What he would have become had he not been assassinated in 1965 is intriguing. The tragedy is, we will never know.
I remember when this book first came out, a lot of people were talking about it. So I'm glad you decided to feature that this month. Okay, so for my next fiction choice, I've got His Only Wife, and I'm just going to stick to calling the author Peace right now. This book came out in September of 2020. The author was born in Liberia, educated in Ghana and the US, and now she teaches at the University of Bristol in England. This book was a New York Times Notable Book of the Year, a Library Journal Best Fiction Book of 2020, and one of the Refinery's 29 books we could not put down. The book is described as a Cinderella story for modern womanhood. Afi is a young, dirt-poor seamstress in Ghana. She's smart, gorgeous, and has been convinced by her mother to marry a man she doesn't know. But Afi knows who he is. Elikem is a businessman whose mother has chosen Afi to distract him from his relationship with his Liberian mistress. With limited options, Afi accepts. But she isn't prepared for how her life changes when she moves from her small hometown to live in Accra, Ghana's gleaming capital, a place of sophistication where she cooks meals for a man who may or may not show up to eat them, just like he was a no-show on his wedding day. Afi agreed to the marriage to give her mother and other family members security, so she must see it through, or maybe not. And in Afi, the author has created a spunky and relatable heroine who may break all the rules. So in Accra, Afi eventually enrolls in design, makes other female friends. So though this book has some Cinderella-esque themes, it does disembark from that enough that Offie ends up saving herself. This book got started use from purpose and self-awareness. Author Wayettu Moore called the book a hilarious, page-turning, sharply realized portrait of modern womanhood in the most infuriating of circumstances. So I picked this one because I admit it has a little bit of that romance flair with the Cinderella story, but it's really romance because she ends up saving herself and it's a modern womanhood story. So I think it sounds pretty kick butt. There is a wait list on some of these formats. So if you want to get your name on there, there's no time like the present. And here's one from Joy.
My next choice for this month is The Other Madisons, The Lost History of a President's Black Family by Betty Kearsey. Betty Kearsey was born into the diverse community of Oakland, California, where she was relatively sheltered from the overt, in-your-face racism her parents had left behind in the South. Her upbringing was decidedly middle class. Her father, a doctor, and her mother, an educator, made sure that Betty and her brother had every advantage. She was given music lessons, attended a debutante ball, and her mother, a woman so proper that Betty never heard her use the word sex, made sure that her daughter was always dressed to the nines. Remember, she'd caution, when Betty's behavior did not meet her expectations, "You're a Madison." Kearsey's mother was her generation's griot, or custodian of family history. And she knew that family tradition held that she was directly descended from James Madison, fourth president of the United States, and Mandy, an African woman sold into slavery in the mid-19th century. She was proud of the man who wrote the Constitution of the United States and of the woman who survived everything that one of the most brutal institutions ever devised could throw at her. But there was an elephant in the well-appointed middle-class living room in Kearsey's childhood home. Since Mandy, a slave, had been utterly powerless, and the white Madisons as slaveholders supremely powerful, could the entire edifice of their family history been built on a foundation of rape? In time, Kearsey's mother handed over the position of family griot, along with a box of treasured documents reflecting a cherished past, to Betty, in the hopes that she would eventually write a book. This is that book. The Other Madisons chronicles Betty Kearsey's journey in search of the truth. As a trained genealogist as well as a griot, Kearsey knew that there would be no passenger list recording Mandy's journey to America, and that her connection to an illustrious founding father had never been formally acknowledged anywhere. Still, Kearsey traveled the world from Montpelier, James Madison's Virginia home, to Texas, where her family eventually settled, to Nigeria, seeking to uncover every buried trace of the people who came before her. To date, Kearsey has not been able to verify a connection to the white Madisons through DNA. Eventually, she may. But how important is it? It would be cool, Kearsey admits, but in the end, the truth lies in the resilience, determination, and pride that shines through the story of one American family.
That is a great choice, or a great pick for you, Joy, because you love genealogy.
Yes, that was wonderful.
I bet. All right, so here's my next one. I'm going to play favorites a little bit and say that this is the one I'm most excited about. This book came out in March of 2020. It was NPR's Book of the Year. and it's described as part The Handmaid's Tale, part The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, a medical horror with a political edge. And if you're not excited yet, here's the description. When Lena's grandmother dies of cancer and their family debt is revealed, Lena drops out of college to support her sick mother and finds a job in the remote town of Lakewood, Michigan. On paper, her new job is too good to be true. High paying, no out-of-pocket medical expenses, a free place to live. All Lena has to do is participate in a secret program, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and lie about the research being done. An eye drop that makes brown eyes blue, a medication that could be a cure for dementia, golden pills promise to make bad thoughts go away. The discoveries made in Lakewood, Lena is told, will change the world. But she's never left alone, and she sees how the participants are mostly minorities, standing out against the white townspeople and researchers. When things spiral out of control, Lena learns how much she's willing to sacrifice for her family. Giddings takes the distrust of her community and amplifies it, creating a wholly new and modern paranoia. This book got starred reviews from Library Journal, Booklist, and Publishers Weekly. Author Lady Hubbard said this book presents an intimate portrait of the physical and psychological trauma caused by the use of Black people as test subjects for medical experiments, and powerfully connects it to the broader legacy of environmental racism. So I think we've all heard about the immortal life of Henrietta Lacks and understand the history there, which is one of the things that made me really interested in this book. But as I was reading about this book, reviews and descriptions, a lot of other historical instances of Black people being used as test subjects for medical experiments came up in what I was reading. And it's really terrible. So I think this is probably, at first I was like, oh, this is a little science fiction type book, but it's not. I think it's going to be really historical and an important thing to read. So I tried to get us a copy as an ebook. So hopefully there will be a few more formats out there for us. Here's one from Joy.
Devin, I've checked out a copy. It's on my desk.
Oh, you always beat me.
So if you want it, I'll pass it on to you when I'm done. That is if I'm not jumping the whole list. Hold on. Well, my last choice for this month is Overground Railroad, The Green Book and the Roots of Black Travel in America by Candacey Taylor. When I first picked up this book, oh, and by the way, it is another one of Smithsonian's best history books of the year. So anyway, when I first picked up this book, I envisioned a nostalgic account of the places frequented by Black travelers on vacation through the years, kind of like stories I've read about the Catskills resorts that catered to the Jewish community through the 1960s. Well, there's some of that, but I was mostly wrong. During the 1930s, Great Depression or no, Black Americans, like white Americans, succumbed to the allure of the automobile and all of the speed, freedom, and adventure it offered. The idea of private transport was particularly appealing to Black Americans for whom travel by train or bus had always involved discomfort and humiliation. However, Black consumers often had trouble obtaining loans, purchasing insurance, and finding dealers willing to conduct business with them. And if a Black family did manage to buy a car and embark on the great American road trip, they often had trouble finding food, accommodation, and fuel. And God forbid the car should actually break down, since many white mechanics refused to provide service to Black customers. In addition, Black travelers had to be prepared to be harassed by white law enforcement officers, particularly if the traveler's car happened to be nicer than the one the officer drove. It was for this reason that many Black drivers routinely carried a chauffeur's cap when venturing out, so that if stopped, they could claim to be driving their employer's car. Well, you'd think that would be enough to discourage Black travel, but no. Enter the Green Book, a guidebook published between 1936 and 1965 that was designed to provide Black travelers with a list of motels, restaurants, retail stores, entertainment venues, parks, beaches, and golf courses hospitable to Black Americans. Like a mobile guide with a very, very serious purpose. Inadvertently, the Green Book also served as a microcosm of the Black business community during the segregation era, when ironically, Black-owned enterprises thrived. The Green Book was the brainchild of Victor Green, a long-time New York postal worker who painstakingly compiled his guide in his spare time. Overground contains so many illustrations that it could almost be treated as a coffee table book, but make no mistake, Taylor's text is meaty, provocative, and full of fascinating anecdotes. Who knew that Esso Oil, the company founded by John D. Rockefeller, not only catered to Black customers in all of its service stations when many companies did not, but hired Black executives at the highest level? The stories go on and on. The Green Book ceased publication in the mid-1960s when the success of the civil rights movement ended legally enforced segregation. Taylor points out that while integration was a boon to most Americans, it decimated Black-owned small businesses. She reports that many, if not most, of the places once listed in the Green Book have closed or fallen into disrepair. And Taylor raises a disquieting issue. Many Black citizens have told her that they feel more uncomfortable traveling through rural America than ever, given the rise of militant white supremacy. And they suggest that maybe we need to revive the Green Book.
Well, that's not really a happy ending for your review, but
oh no. But
understandable.
What a lens through which to look at Black history.
Definitely. Okay, but that brings us to the end of our Black History Month episode. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget, if you're looking for a personalized book recommendation, you can just put some information in the comments below and Joy and I will get back to you. Don't forget to give us some likes and loves if you enjoy our videos and share them with all your friends. Thanks for watching.
See you later, fellow readers.